Hello, I'm Mikkel Carper, and this portion of the level is an outdoor environment. When the player walks up to the level, they'll notice there are some fallen logs, trees that have blocked the path. When they go to their left, they will find their first collectible. Once the player turns around, they will have to maneuver around the fallen trees to enter into the level. If they make a wrong turn, such as if they turn right, they will be blocked in. So the player must turn around and find the correct path to move forward. Once they find that path, they will find their way directly into the level. When they come around the corner, they will find their second collectible. To the right, they'll notice the water landscape, the mountains, and the trees. Going forward, they will come across more fallen trees, this time blocking their path completely, and the player will not be able to walk around or jump over. They must then use their grapnel to lift the log up, throw it over them, or throw it forward, and they'll be able to continue through. Walking forward, they'll have another instance where they'll have to move a log with a grapnel. Move it forward. Coming forward, they'll come to a bridge that's blocked by a big block connected to the water that you viewed a little bit ago. Once the player moves the block, they'll be able to jump the gap and continue through on the bridge. If the player falls into the water, they'll have to exit to get across. After the bridge, they will come to a little area that the player will have to jump across to reach the other side. And they'll notice there's more logs, but at this point they are able to move through them, and there's a collectible on the other side. The player must use the crouch function by pressing C. Going underneath the log, they will find their next collectible, and then continue through. Moving around the side of the logs to their left, they'll see a glimpse of another collectible behind a group of boxes. Once that's collected, they can then follow through the path. The player will begin to notice the building in the background, along the mountain landscape, the trees. Player moving forward, they will have to then jump over the logs to continue on the path. When they come around the corner to the front of the building, they'll notice a ramp that is going up to the roof. The player will follow the through on the narrow walkway, being very careful not to fall off. When the player gets to the very top, as long as they don't fall off, they will notice there's a collectible on the rooftop. Player can then walk back down the same path to get to the bottom. When the player starts walking through the entrance of the building, once they come around this little bend to the right, they will notice another collectible. And then they may head to the entrance of the building. When they enter to the front of the building, the player will be prompted to press E to open the door. A little noise will notify the door is being opened. When they walk in, they'll notice several boxes. This is the museum portion of the level. Going around the first set of boxes, there's a collectible, and then heading to the second bunch of boxes, there will be another collectible. Then the player must head over to an area that if they fall off, it will cause damage. So they'd be careful not to fall off the ledge, walking across the separate pathways. When they enter this area, this will be towards the end of the level. The player will notice a cluster of boxes. The boxes of a different shade are interactable with the player. The player must use the grapnel in order to throw the boxes out of the way. Once the boxes have been moved out of the player's way, they can enter into the other area. And once they enter in that area, to the left is a collectible. Then they will notice a cluster of platforms. On the very top of that platform is the last collectible, which is a statue. Once they reach the statue, they'll hear a noise that symbolizes that the last door has been opened. This door, which is not accessible until the statue is collected, is going to be the entrance to the next area of the level. Once the player reaches the end of the hallway, they will see the opening to the next section.
Alright, then my name is Deontay Jackson, and for my portion of the level, the player needs to go inside of an abandoned library so that they can find their way out, collect the object that they need, and make sure that they get their way to the next portion of the level here. So of course, the player's first instinct there is to go about inspecting the library there, because clearly from the front door it looks as if they couldn't go about getting inside. So let's go about rounding the building here and take a look-see as to what we can do to get inside. Let's round the corner here because this area doesn't appear there's anything that they can do to get inside here. So just round the back, and now we're coming around the side. We're back at the entrance there where that bus had crashed into the front door. So maybe there's another way that I missed over on this side here. Alright, so what it seems we're going to need to go about doing here, we can use these crates, then create an entrance into the library that way. It looks like there's a hole up on the second floor. So what you're going to do is you're going to use these crates as stepping stools, climb up on top of this bus, and now we're inside the library. Now it doesn't look like there's too many movable objects here at the front door, or it's the front door, so to speak. So what we're going to try and do is see if we can progress here. Doesn't look like that door will open, so let's see if we can find another way over. Does look like there may be some cool things down, so we can jump over the banister and wander around, find a hidden hallway here, go about moving some crates. Maybe there's some goodies over on the other side of this. Alright, now that the crates are out of the way, player can go ahead and enter inside the hidden area, take a look-see. Doesn't look like there's much to collect in here, so best bet would be go ahead and circle around, see what we got going on back outside in the main room here. As the players wandering around, they notice that still this is the entrance where they couldn't go about getting inside, so we're clearly on the inside now. This is the generator room. Appears there's a giant red button, which most likely we need to go about interacting with here. So our best bet to go ahead and get on that button would be for us to take a look-see and see if there's anything that we need to go about interacting with it here. Alright, doesn't really look like there's much that'll give us a help, but player goes ahead and inspects the rest of the room. And they happen to find a hidden doorway, so they fall straight through that trap doorway, and it looks like there's a ledge on the other end. So in order to get over there, we can't just jump over, so we're going to have to use a crate as a stepping stool, using that tool again. So using the grabbing tool, we'll move that crate, make sure it's fixed properly, hop on top of that crate there, and then we can jump over into the hidden laboratory where the player will find the final room. And then from this point we can go ahead and make our way outside so we can proceed on to the final level.
Hey guys, my name is Jonathan Hartman, and I'm going to be the one showing you through this part of the level. We're going to start off with the player opening the door by pressing E. The player has 3 floors of the house to explore, and they could use the gravinal to open up objects like doors or even the pantries. It appears that one has fallen, so we're going to go ahead and pick up that collectible that's revealed to us. And now we're going to make our way up the stairs. Throughout the house, there will be items hidden, collectibles that will be needed to progress further within the level as we keep going. As we've seen, there's, like I said before, there's collectibles hidden right underneath this pillar, and that pillar is used to get to the floating money. But for a sake of time, we're just gonna jump over the gap and get it. And that also gave us one of the collectibles we needed to progress further. The player will have to use the grapnel to move this destroyed bed to fall down to the final floor. Alright, and there will also be some doors that are locked, as well as some hidden doors like this that the player will have to go up to and press E to activate. And with this gem, we can go to this box over here in the corner and open it and grab our key if we could get to it. Oh. Well, for the sake of time, we're just gonna leave it be, and we're gonna jump over this wall instead of rearranging the blocks to make the bridge, and work our way around this lovely terrain. And we're gonna come up to the gate that we would need the key for to progress further through. But for the sake of time and the lack of getting the key because we had to progress further, we shall activate God mode so we can float through the door as if we were a phantom. And that's it for this level. And then we will progress to the next. Let's just deactivate God mode and
My name is Kyle Asplund, and my scene is coming up here. It is an abandoned medical facility. Up there on the hill to the left, there is a pile of debris with a collectible underneath it. This glass door in front of us here is meant to be broken with the physics block right there. In the essence of time, we'll be using God mode to pass through some of these breakable doors. They are kind of difficult. In here is a security checkpoint and like a reception area. If the player needs to bring the physics block from the entryway to break through that door as well. In this room, there are many blocks and a weak wall that can be pushed through, as well as some collectibles. In here is kind of another intermediate meeting area, a cubicle farm with some collectibles hidden. Through here, there's our elevator, and around this corner is another collectible with a couple things scattered about. As we go up to our second floor, there is a checkpoint at the second floor, as well as another breakable wall with a physics block, so you don't have to keep carting around the same block. So we go through into some more cubicles. There is a strange looking floor there that can be quite treacherous when stepped upon, given. And then now is a secondary checkpoint, or a security type checkpoint, up to the elevator onto our third floor, which houses our medical laboratory, needing another wall to be broken through. And inside of our laboratory here, there is a conditional damage volume that will damage the player if they were unable to collect all 4 pieces of the biohazard suit. Behind our door over there. No. Okay. And once the medical supplies are picked up, our player can break through the glass and hop down out of the backside of our level here and move on to the next scene.
Hello everybody, my name is Christopher James and I would like to walk you through my scene today. As the player enters, they'll come across a long bridge, and as soon as the player hits about midway, they will come across an opening. If the player falls in that opening, they will be restarted back at the checkpoint. So the player must jump over it to get to the next part, which will then be the crawl. As the player crawls through, they will start to get up a little bit higher and finally reach the top of the little ramp. Once they're at the top of the ramp, they will see the fire. Their goal is to put this fire out. To do that, they will come over to the switch and press E. Once they press E, a sprinkler system will rise up out of the wall and put out the fire. The concept is on both sides of the wall that there is a collider to prevent the player from jumping over that wall. Once the player gets to this point, they will press E to open up the door, and then they will enter inside. Once inside, they will see that there's multiple sides to the room, a left, a right, and a forward. If they go to the left, they will attempt to press E, but notice that the door does not open. So they can begin to explore. They'll notice there's terrain raised up in certain locations to kind of give the idea of it being rocks falling through the ceiling, knocking out the ceiling, and filling up the room. So the player will then go into this little room and find a little blue object. That object is called a key card. That key card is used to open up certain doors. There's only 3, and this door here only requires 1. The player then presses E and it opens up the door. At that point, the player can enter the room. The player must walk around this entire section until they find 3 more key cards. There's 3 rooms with fires and 3 rooms with switches. The switches are connected to an individual fire, so there's only 1 switch per 1 fire. I did that concept to kind of increase the gameplay and immersion because the player is trying to search for those. They're trying to search for them, but at the same time, they're trying to find out which one turns off which fire. If that makes any sense at all. I hope it does. So the player will then press E on this switch and can look and watch and see if the fire goes out, which they'll realize it doesn't. There is an object in this room that the player can move around. There's really no use for it. I'm going to implement more to hide the key cards under certain objects. So for right now, it's kind of a dry build phase, if you can get that part. The player then crawls underneath this debris and will then reach the other side. Once on the other side, they'll start searching in rooms. Some rooms are filled with debris, while others are not. So they will enter this one, and they will flip the switch. And then they can begin to search and find another switch or try to find out which fire that one switch put out. And the player comes across another switch. So now all 3 fires on this side should be out. There was a fire in the room next to this one, which should be out because all the switches were flipped. And we will see what happens once the player gets under this debris. And sure enough, the fire is out. The player will collect this key card. Now they're required to collect 2 more before they can open up that door. There is a section where the door is, one door is broken, which is intentional. I'm trying to make it look like, it is run down. It's after the post-apocalyptic age and everything else, so that's why that door looks like it's destroyed. The player will now try to return back to the area that they were just at for the main door and see if they can find the last 2 key cards in this area. Now that the player is crawling under this one, there is 1 key card in this area, which you saw the fire earlier. The player enters, turns to the right, and there's the key card. Now the player will run back out and return back to the next area because all these rooms have already been gone through. And once they are under this one, they will see a door straight ahead of them that they can go to, press E, and it will take them to the last key card for this side. Once that key card is collected, they can return to the door and go to the little box on the side and press E, which opens up the door. There is 1 computer station. The room is pretty much empty. but the idea is to implement more ideas and prefabs into that room to fill it up. So once the player has exited that area, they will notice that the door on the opposite side is now open. They will then go to this side to start collecting more key cards, and then activate the central lab. So to do that, they will begin to look. They'll notice that there are rooms on fire, so they will go and flip off the switches. Once they flip the 4 switches on this side and put out the 4 fires on this individual side of the room and collect the 4 key cards, they can then enter the central lab. And then also there are other collectibles called copper. The copper is used to be sold, but that's outside of the actual gameplay. But inside this gameplay, that's the intention of what the copper's for. There are rooms that are empty, which again, that was just a quick design concept, and in beta, most of the rooms should be filled. If not, this level will actually be shrunk. So the player just noticed that fire is still not out, so that should mean that that switch that they flipped does not run into that room. It runs into this one. So then they will go to this last switch, flip it, and then return back to that third door on the left, which they could see the fire going out on their way back. Collect the last key card, and now they should have all 8. They will now return to the little lab here, press E, and open up the door. There are 2 computers. The one on the left controls the little box on the right of it, which opens up the plutonium container. Then the one on the right opens up the main lab door that's in the lobby area. The player will then return to that little area once they verify that there's nothing left. And once they get back out, they can then go up the ramp and enter into the next area. So when you look on the right, you'll see that door is now open. Go up the ramp to arrive at the roof. And in the next update, there will be blocks offs to prevent the player from exploring the roof. Because as of right now, the player is actually able to visually run around the roof and do whatever. So in beta, that will be corrected to the point that the player can't free roam. Now we start going up a path, and now we will let you hear the next person. Thank you.
In my level, the main goal is to get in the train and start it. Here, the player is introduced to collectibles along with the option to move objects to find things underneath objects. So they need to get onto the train to first try and start the train, but there is no interaction with the door by pressing the E key, so you just gotta rip it off with the grapnel. And here in the first car, we're just introducing the player to more collectibles that they can find if they wish to explore a bit. But to advance, they just need to jump through the window over here. Pretty simple. In the second car, it's a bit more cramped, so there isn't as much to do, but the door is broken. And instead of having some sort of notification pop up for the player, just want to have them look around and try and figure it out, which they would be able to do pretty easily, as you can tell. Just need to climb up out of the skylight. So you just use the grapnel to position boxes to create a step stool to get out of the car. And up on top of the second car, there is no way for the player to actually get out. There are invisible walls preventing them from jumping down through the connector over here, and the railings are way too tall for the player to jump over. When they jump down, they initially try to advance forward, but they can't because there's rubble blocking the way. So you need to find another way. There are a few more collectibles in the passenger car, and then they need to travel upstairs. Once upstairs, they will want to try and continue forward again, only to find that there's nothing waiting for them at the end of the top of the train car, except for more collectibles. So, players gonna have to think what to do. So just like with getting on the train, they just need to rip the door off. And there's a hole in this car for them to drop down on the other side of the rubble. And they have a fire extinguisher, which they need to pick up. If they don't, they won't be able to advance eventually. In this room, we introduce the second mechanic, which is the throwing mechanic. So they pick up objects with the grapnel and then use the right mouse button to fire or throw the objects at the buttons in the wall to delete the electrical panels. That if they were to touch the electrical panels along the floor, which are the pink panels that you see, if they were to touch them, it would instantly kill the player and start them back to the last checkpoint. This is why they need the fire extinguisher. In the bottom of the final car, the player needs to release the brakes and power the train with coal. So these three objects are the coal that you need to put in the fire. Once all three are inside, then they just need to release the brakes. If the player tries to start the train without doing any of these, they'll receive a prompt saying that they need to do these objectives before the train can even move. There, they just release the brakes. Then they go upstairs. And they're off.